Welcome to Richard and Karl present Deep Space and Dragons. I'm Richard and I was on time today.
I'm Karl and I was supposedly 3 minutes slow.
I only give you a hard time about it, because you're like, hey, let's record now. And I'm like, all right, you don't need that buffer zone. And then boom, you needed the buffer zone. So,
okay, my headphones were not on the floor in my bedroom where I left them, so I had to go find them.
That is the best defense you possibly could have had. I respect that immensely. So, before I ask what's new in the Karlverse, we had a couple fan questions come in, and I'm going to fire them at you rapid. First, how's the Sandblaster going?
I really haven't made any progress because I keep neglecting to de-batteryfy my old European tools.
The second question I have coming in, so Sandblaster when?
Ooh, wow, that's well, I got some aluminum tape to work on my artificial window because I just need to put the tape on there. I was going to do that because it doesn't require the aforementioned European tools.
Alright, so the third question I had come in is, but seriously, how goes the Karl projects? We hear a lot of interesting Karl projects, and never any follow-up about them.
Yeah. Well, see, there are several months of Ice Age in Saskatchewan, where it's not conducive to work in the garage.
Or be outside in general, because it causes death.
But I mean, now it's actually pretty nice out, and I can start doing some more of my projects and stuff. But I have to get motivated, and also, there's just a few odds and ends I have to pick up. Because, like I said, to de-batteryfy the old power tools that I got, I need to pick up some wire, and then I need to solder all the connection points. And I have everything I need except for a soldering iron and the actual wire to connect the barrel plugs that I bought.
Okay.
Which, I mean, I've been getting up quite a bit earlier lately because I have to take my girlfriend to work.
And it's mathematically impossible to wake up later than 6 p.m.
Well, that depends on the time zone. I did actually manage to sleep in for work the other day. It made me feel kind of actually a little bit embarrassed.
Oh,
no, it
damn.
would have been good if we had that question about embarrassing stories more recently, because that would have been my embarrassing story.
I mean, sleeping until 6 p.m. is interesting, to say the least.
But I guess actually that does segue to something else that is new with me, because I don't know if I ever mentioned it on the podcast, but I picked up a paper route to be more productive in odd hours of the day when I was not being productive, and then make a little bit more money and get some exercise and stuff. The more money and the exercise worked out, the being more productive, it actually made me feel less productive, and I ended up being more tired and sleeping away the useful hours of the day. So I quit my paper route, and now I don't have a paper route anymore, which is good.
Well, I mean, on one hand, it is interesting to, try something new, get some more exercise. Like, I was pro paper route, despite usually being a deeply negative person towards Karl. Which is funny, because I'm like a professional public speaker, motivational speaker. Like, my full-time job is to make people feel good about themselves. So I think, like, a weird side effect of that is whenever I'm saying something super positive while walking somebody through how to install Word and change a font, an equal amount of negative energy builds up simultaneously, right? And then once I've exhausted all my positive energy, the negative energy gets compressed into a sphere and then shot through Karl as a cool, like, spiky lightning bolt thing. Seriously, the artwork in Siren was dope.
I was gonna say I'm like a negative energy heatsink, like.
Oh yeah.
I don't really. I deal with negative energy pretty well. I think it just disperses through me.
Where I just channel it deep into my soul so it can fester as mental illness.
Well, hopefully not. What's new with you?
Oh, a couple things. So first is I started a yoga class.
Okay, yeah.
And so I'm almost physically fit enough to do yoga. Almost. So
okay.
I'm going through this class doing these poses, and one of them's literally just do a plank, which is just an exercise maneuver, a plank. But my noodle arms aren't quite strong enough to support my fat body.
Okay.
But it's close. So I get comments like, "Oh, you're taking this super seriously, and you're super focused. You're doing really well." I'm like, because it's taking my entire will to plank. If I seem hyper focused on this yoga, it's because it literally is taking 100% of my ki control to do this warrior pose. Warrior, I am not.
Yeah, so like yoga class, like that's like a online video kind of thing, or
Oh no, I took a bus and went to the campus.
oh, nice.
Yeah, I need to.
That's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, I need to spend less time in this office. My office is dope. I got computer screens. I have 3 Nintendo Switch per square foot, which means I only have half a foot, but there's 2 switches in it. It's great numbers. But I did like an interesting backslide. So our viewers don't know this / listeners, but you do that. I used to walk an hour and a half to and from work every day, which is why I held off the ravages of time for as long as I did. Once I stopped working 12-hour shifts with an hour walk to and from it, and I was no longer putting in 14 hours of exercise, I turned into a potato. And after I potatoed for 2 years straight, I now have to, reclaim. But what's funny is people are like, "Oh, yoga's hurt you because you're old." I'm like, actually, I've never been in better shape in my life. This is literally the only time I've been in good enough shape to attempt standing in a tree pose. Because as you know, older, younger me, there was a lot of me falling over, just spontaneously, right. And a lot of not having any physical strength, and the secret to my fighting style being pure bloodlust rather than anything resembling strength or technique.
Yeah, I mean that was abundantly clear in our amateur boxing match with the. How heavy were those gloves? They were like ridiculously heavy. They were like 1 pound, more than a pound each, weren't they?
Yeah, so my only strategy was go to kill them. Like if I was in the Dragon Ball Z Tournament of Power, I'd have to be like, so the rules say if I kill someone, I lose, but does my team get a punishment or just me? Because I'll 1-for-1 this person, kill them, and then get kicked out. That's the strat.
Cunning strategy. Wait, no, what's the opposite of that?
I mean, I'm not going to complete the full quote because things have got more woke in the 20 years since Dragon Ball Z Abridged came out.
a little bit.
But moving on from that, so what I got new on me is taking the yoga class, working on my new novel. I got a few chapters done, their first wave edits. We did a cohort meetup on Wednesday where I gave a little lecture on how to self-publish. Good times were had. I had people ask about... I got Lazarus trapped. So I was going to leave and head home at a reasonable time. Take a bus at 9, 10-ish. Be home by comfortable in bed by 12. You know, the dream. But then someone asked me, and they legitimately mean this, how do you play Dungeons & Dragons? I don't know anything about this. And they sincerely wanted to know. I can't not teach somebody how to play Dungeons & Dragons if they ask me. I can't.
Oh, yeah.
So if they want me to walk through from step 1 to 20 how to build a character and how one would play it, I now have to do this. I can't not do it. So I get a message from my brother. It's like, "Are you still out?" I'm like, they wanted to know how Dungeons & Dragons worked. What am I going to do? Not tell them? That's just lunacy. I'm surprised I didn't have a slideshow and a laser pointer prepared.
Ooh, well, next time you probably will.
Probably. And then the other last really interesting thing is, part of my Task Force supergroup, we started planning our fall events. And I got to explain and get paid in a meeting to be like, this is Jackbox games. One person has a client, and then you stream it. That was a fun meeting. And then the last...
It wasn't a fun meeting?
Oh, it was an extremely fun meeting. We ended up just playing
good.
Murder Mystery Trivia Party as our, meeting. It was great. We just demoed the game and played it. Good stuff. And the last interesting thing I have coming up is I volunteered some hours to ushering at the grad ceremony, because there really wasn't one in the last couple of years.
Right.
So they're throwing on a week of convocations for all the different programs. And they're like, "Hey, we'll pay you some of your regular hours to go volunteer at this thing." And I'm like, I feel like there'll be food there. Yeah, I sign up.
They're paying you to volunteer?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you're technically a volunteer anymore, but all right.
I mean, they're paying me to say... Let's put it this way. Imagine, if you will, you work at your redacted pizzeria doing your redacted pizzeria thing. And your boss says, hey, would you like to go open a new pizzeria in Moosefang or wherever? And then you're like, okay, I would like to do that. So you volunteer to go do the thing. Because you didn't actually
but they
have
are
to.
going to pay you.
Yes.
Okay.
Moosefang, that's such a better name. We need to buy it and rename it. What is that, like $17?
That would be pretty funny if you rename a town in Saskatchewan.
Like, buying an entire town in Saskatchewan is the same price as a reasonable condo here. Like, I'm pretty sure my mom bought an entire hunting lodge for cheaper than my ex's one-bedroom house.
Speaking of buying property,
right?
I mean, the best Monopoly knockoff ever made, Dokapon Kingdom, like that's...
Alright, so to give a little perspective of how I even found this game, for why it exists in the first place, is I was at an HMV video store in Calgary. The Nintendo Wii was relatively new, and Dokapon Kingdom came out for Wii and PS2. It was like one of the last games on the PlayStation 2. And I'm like, hey, 4-player board game Monopoly type thing. Yeah, this will be worth $8. So
$8,
right? For the amount of hours a single game of Dokapon Kingdom gives you, it is by far the highest hours and friendship ruined and threat ratio to cost efficiency I've ever seen in my life. So Dokapon, so I'll let you give a brief overview of what this game is and why it's simultaneously the best and cruelest thing ever created.
Well, I mean, Dokapon Kingdom is a Mario Party-esque game. Well, I guess it's not really Mario Party-esque. It's a board game-esque video game where you go around fighting monsters and claiming towns to find items for quests and rewards and whatnot from the king. And then at the end, whoever has the most money gets to marry the king's daughter.
And become the winner of Dokapon Kingdom. So here's what makes this game interesting. So you start with, you can either say Mario Party or Monopoly or whatever generic board game. And then it just has unprotected sex with an entire Final Fantasy game from start to finish. So Dokapon Kingdom's like, alright, here's your game board. It has like 50 tiles and it looks like a Mario Party game board. You're like, okay. And they're like, pick your class and your color. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll pick my class and my color. So far, this isn't that complicated. You roll a couple dice, move a few squares, fight a slime. You're like, okay, I'm playing Dragon Quest somehow. All right. You level up once. You get to the end of the first part, like, okay, now to start the game. You're like, but we just played for half an hour. Is this not the... No. And then it has a 1-to-1 scale map of Earth. And they're like, okay, your objective is to conquer the planet while fighting the Demon Lord through an entire Dragon Quest game. You're like, oh, that's fun. Also with Monopoly physics. Wait, what? They're like, oh, is this game cooperative? So I land on the same square as Karl, because we're playing together. There's a couple cops. Like, all right, now you fight to the death. Oh, I see. This is... You're making us play Dragon Quest, an entire Dragon Quest, against each other. Huh. And then after I did...
You can play cooperatively.
That is a lie. The game does not want you to do that. Because you'll be like...
Yeah, no trading items. You can't give people gold. There's tons of items that are like, oh, give this to your friends so it eats their items.
There's literally an item that's like, choose...
Curse people with changing their haircuts.
That's the thing. It's like, oh, you can punish them by taking their powerful in-game items, or, you could just shave their head. This wasn't created by people who believed in fun. Because if you give your ability to the name to change Karl's name to Karl with a C, and to shave his head, they're not trying to encourage friendship. They're encouraging death. And then, you put the bots on, which of course just cheat, but you have to put bots on as a common enemy, or else they'll just evolve into pure chaos. Or you're losing, and then the literal devil's like, hey, I hear you're losing. Don't you hate how Karl shaved your hair? How would you like vengeance? And then you sell your soul for power, forgetting that there's actually an end to this thing. And by selling your valuables, you're actually reducing your odds of winning at the end.
Yeah, but you get like 10 turns of being the literal devil going around messing people up.
And it's like you start exploring the world map, and you're like, wait, there's full dungeons and sub-maps? As you're like, hey, I bet you didn't know the secret tunnel through the forest to the grove to get the Master Sword. I'm like, how dare you get a Master Sword? And then we fight, and I take your Master Sword, because I'm so bitter that you found a secret tunnel to a Master Sword, and then suddenly our alliance, our 3-day-long, real-time alliance we had forged, was broken, because I felt so profoundly betrayed. And that's the thing, is
Yeah,
it's not a game, it's a journey. Because the game has in-game chapters, 10, I believe?
Something like that.
And each chapter you complete, the game board gets bigger. And I'd say each chapter probably takes about 4 hours. So
probably.
A match of Dokapon Kingdom is a week. Like, I think we tried to fit one into a Karl Fest.
Mm-hmm.
But that would have to be the entire Karl Fest.
Well, the game is a lot of fun, but if you actually play through the entire story mode, it is quite time-consuming. They do have the other game modes, like the one where you can just do a single chapter, but...
that takes away some of the excellence of it, honestly, though, in my opinion, as an expert.
Well, and then also, if I recall correctly, it didn't... like, you could start on, like, the third chapter, but you still start at level 1, but it doesn't scale the enemies down.
It's a whole thing. Like, we also haven't really tried the other modes that much, because the main mode, where they're giving you a narrative, a surprisingly compelling, without having too much dialogue narrative of... Like I said, the premise of the game is, welcome to Dokapon Kingdom, where you're trying to save the quaint country town, and every one of them wants to rip you off. And you want to rip off every one of them. You go to the shop, it's like, hey, $1,000 for a sword, and you're like, I'm gonna just rob you. And then you rob the shop, and now you're a wanted criminal, and the other players can turn you into the popo for a cash reward. Like, it just actively encourages the opposite of friendship.
The game is truly excellent because it has a very simple premise, but it has so much content. Like the secret alchemy class that you can only get to by bringing a tablet to the temple under the sea. And you have to have an oxygen ring to make it, otherwise you drown.
Or when you have to climb to the top of Mount Doom with your angel wings to reach heaven to get your knight class. And it's funny because it's like, a player will be like, okay, I'm on this epic quest to be this alchemist. It's like, cool, I'm just going to go conquer Eurasia while you're doing this. As you literally go and take every town in Europe because they're on an over-elaborate quest because they want a laser gun. And then Karl just steals your laser gun.
Oh, the worst is when the enemies attack you and they just break your stuff randomly.
It's like, and we broke your solid gold nunchaku, but I got those from the center of the earth. Like,
nothing is sacred from the guys that break stuff. That's the worst part.
Nothing in this game is sacred. An alien picked me up one time and dropped me off as the opposite gender.
Yeah. Or there's the doctor. What was his name?
Dr. Exiles. I've made 3 D&D versions of him, and I will play him someday in a D&D campaign. The doctor who shows up, he heals you against your will and then gives you realistic amounts of medical debt. And I mean realistic if you have no health insurance and you're born in Texas.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, I healed you for 10 hit points. That'll be $10,000. Oh, you don't have $10,000? Well, guess what? This game has a credit system, and you are literally $9,000 in debt.
Want to mortgage your towns you saved? Because when you save a town, it becomes your legal property, obviously.
Oh, and hence the Monopoly part, because you're going through, you're fighting the monsters, and then they're guarding the towns, and so you have to liberate the towns from the monsters, but whoever liberates them gets to claim income tax from the town.
And then when other players stop there, they have to pay for first aid at the town, and you bill them and cackle to yourself. Although, if you want to be a real monster, it's like, oh, I found this scroll that summons a monster. What would I use for this? Oh, go to Karl's town, summon a monster, then kill it and claim to be the new hero and take the town. It's just... the game just kind of morally corrupts you as you play it.
Oh, and then like when you're on the world map, and then you can cast the spells to someone's almost dead. You're like, oh, you're fighting a monster. You have it almost dead. Well, I'm going to shoot you with the fireball and then go kill that monster for myself.
Yep, or when you're stuck fighting a monster, turns still pass for everyone else, so you're like, Karl is fighting an ogre. So since he's busy, I'm just gonna go walk right past him, steal his wallet, and then buy myself a great sword, so the shop has nothing left. It's like, oh, that's just amazing.
And then, yeah, it's like all in a cutesy anime style. Well, PS2 era graphics style, I guess. But
held up surprisingly well.
Yeah, it aged well because it had an art style rather than trying to be hyper realistic.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between Wind Waker and Anime the video game for art style. Like, it's basically Ruby Chibi 10 years before Ruby Chibi.
Although you were saying, through emulation, you can mod some of the terrible anime tropes out, namely the bikini armor.
Yeah, so specifically the female warrior class decided to get bikini armor for no adequately explored reason. And a lot of the other female outfits don't have this problem, it's just the female warrior. I think they might have been going for like a Xena homage or something. So I literally edited the texture and just gave them the male armor and fixed it, which is like my most game hacking thing I've ever done. I'm like, I went through it. I found the texture, dumped it from the game, edited it in Photoshop, put it back in, and then gave them clothing, because I have this technology, apparently. And I mean, it's not like the game's dialogue and things are inherently sexist. It's just the flaw of the form, like video games giving female characters in practical armor, still happens to this day. Somehow. Although I did see a fun meme comic about it where the reason this happens is you design your armor based on the wounds people come back with, right? So people come back with shoulder wounds, leg wounds, you think, oh, that's where we need to put armor. No one came back with chest wounds, so you don't need armor there. No one came back with stomach wounds, you don't need armor there.
That's actually kind of funny,
right?
I mean, like in real world application, that's literally what happened in with like planes in World War I and World War II, where it's like the parts that actually had holes in them were the parts that you didn't need.
Yeah. So the flaws of that logic so fantastic. As in my most recent D&D game, I had somebody break their pact with their rabbit god, and then their skeleton turned back into a human skeleton in their rabbit folk body.
Oh.
That might be the most brutal thing I've done. But
that does sound brutal.
Disregarding I let them fix it with True Love's Kiss, so I'm not a cruel dungeon master.
With True Love's Kiss.
I'm never gonna not let someone cure something with True Love's Kiss. Come on. I'll at least have them roll for it.
But back to Dokapon Kingdom, the one chapter where you're just going through and you're trying to collect money to pay off the king's debt. You have to go get this tablet because it shows
yes!
that his accounting errors or whatever.
His ancient memorial of his family's ancestral tax fraud. Well, it's kind of funny too for the complexity. So you start like, okay, this seems pretty simple. Warriors get more attack power. Rogues steal things when they walk past someone. Wizards can cast 2 spells on the field. And then you level up and they're like, you've unlocked the cleric. You're like, wait, you can unlock stuff? And so it turns out like every 2 class combination makes a subclass, and then there's hidden classes. And just the level of complexity is just, oh yeah, no, this is a full old school Final Fantasy game for class and unlocks and gear.
But then it also still has like a light and happy a story going on in the background where it's like, because everybody's eventually trying to take down the demon lord.
Which, to try and fight the demon lord, you have to leverage a quarter of your property to be even allowed to try and fight him.
Yeah.
And then you can take the secret path around him. Or, I do believe I shot you with a lightning bolt while you were fighting him once, because I'm that good of a friend.
That good of a friend.
But what's also cool is, they're like, okay, we're going to give you inventory management. And at first you feel like, okay, we spin the spinner to see how many squares I move, so this game feels random. But then they give you enough items, it's like, oh, you can choose how many tiles you move, or you can move multiple spinners. And they designed the board to be very circular, so if you roll a 12, there's 30 squares you can choose to land on. So it's like, it feels unrandom at parts. But then the core gameplay mechanic is weighted rock, paper, scissors.
Well, it's not entirely random. That part's mostly psychological. Unless you're playing against the comms who just cheat.
Well, to be fair, the strategy for the comms is they'll just cheat. It's like playing Byron in Magic. The comp will always pick the perfect countermeasure, so then you figure out what does the most damage if it's blocked completely. So you don't go for the heavy all-in strike, because they'll counter them. You don't go for the spell, because they have Mirror Force. So you have to go with the basic attack, because it's the only option that, when stopped, still does some damage. And you only fight enemies you think that you can beat, if you assume they always block and counter you correctly.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, the calm players are worse than the monsters. So, like the NPC monsters are they don't cheat as much.
Except for bosses. Bosses explicitly cheat.
Oh yeah, especially the ones that break your items. It's like, oh yeah, there's a 10% chance your item will break 100% of the time.
And then, little details they put in that game. Like, so it's like, okay, we've started to figure out the strategy. But they also just roll a random event where it's like, oh yeah, you're going through, hi, want me to dig a hot spring here? Wait, what? Who are you? I put a hot spring in your town. Or, you know what we should do at this random week for no particular reason? You know this arena tile that's been on the map the whole time that never did anything? Yeah? We're having an elimination tournament. Wait, what? When? Why?
Hurry over to the arena or else you don't get entered.
Or it's like, hey, I found a secret merchant who sold me a unique hairstyle. I know defeating Karl in this race to claim this castle is important, but I could have a pompadour. And I had to ask myself.
And then you have to take time to go back to the main castle to the hairstylist to equip your new hairstyle.
But that's like the best trap of all is like, hey, are you sure you... It's like, well, you could go to the castle to heal and give the king gifts to bribe him. Because you could just bribe the king and then he'll skew the results at the end. Or if you spend the entire game doing nothing but bribing the king, I could have more money than you, but you might still win on bribes. It's just like real democracy.
Yeah. But actually, that was an interesting point that you mentioned about the weekly event system, because it's like the game has in-game weeks and days and weeks. And so it's like certain days of the week, the shops will have sales. And then at the end of every week, there's like a random event, which you never really know if it's going to be good or if it's going to be bad.
One time it was just mouse season and they just bit you and gave you illnesses.
Yeah. Like there's so much going on, and yet it's still a relatively simple and fun game to play.
I think part of what its biggest benefit is because it's such a colossal game, you actually have time to learn it. Because it's like, they give you this beautiful little bar graph to show how you're doing. Also, each class gets a weekly salary based on if you did your class's actual job, which took me an embarrassing amount of time to piece together. It's like, hey, I'm a fighter and I fought 10 things. What's this extra bonus money? Because you fought 10 things and you're a fighter? Oh! What'd the thief get a bonus for? Stealing stuff? Oh! And like any semblance of the game being a friendship game is like, oh, the thief just steals items when they walk past players. So any effort to go cooperative is defeated the moment they walk past you, take your free healing potion, and you die. And then you can switch classes. There's the subclasses, advanced classes. You have class level and character level. You get to equip different skills. Like, who thinks to themselves, what if Monopoly was an entire JRPG?
Well, you know, one of the interesting things about Dokapon Kingdom, though, like we're talking about the PlayStation 2 and Wii one, but I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to look it up now, but I'm pretty sure it originally came out on the Super Nintendo.
It did, but here's the thing, and I've even tried to like find translated ROMs and things. The Dokapon series, because this game is so truly needlessly complicated, you need the full English one. Like the version that's been localized is necessary because of the complexity of this game. But what I wanted to do is they need to re-release it for sale on Steam for $8. And then I would probably have 10 copies sold tomorrow.
The Super Famicom version is called Dokapon Kingdom 321. Dokapon 321.
But that
Friendship Calling a Storm. Ooh.
Yeah, but the board on that one's just a square.
Is it?
Yeah, I tried to make it work so I could just bust it out for one of our streams. Like, hey, Karl, want to play 321 Dokapon? But
oh, man.
As far as I can tell, Dokapon Kingdom is the best one of the series.
Dokapon Kingdom is selling on eBay for like $230 for a physical copy of the Wii version.
Honestly, you can get your gameplay out of that.
Yeah, I just didn't realize for like it's such an obscure game that you can't actually find like walkthroughs and like a complete guide to everything that's in the game. You actually have to like go through it and learn it yourself. And yet it's that expensive.
Yeah, because those who know. You know how many people probably rented this back when game rentals was a thing for a weekend, played it, and then someone stole it from the rental store, and then they never saw it again, and wonder if it ever existed at all, or they just dreamt it at 3 a.m.
That is fair.
Like, I definitely have my copy of Dokapon Kingdom. It is mine. It is precious and vital.
Precious and vital.
And like, I had the Wii version because in my brain we have Wiimotes. We have 4 of PlayStation 2. I don't think I had a multi-tap because that rarely came up, if ever. Although the only other game I can think of for the PlayStation that had multi-tap capability was Baldur's Gate: Dark Alliance. Which, I mean, to be fair, at some point we need to play through Baldur's Gate 3 because it's awesome. And as for Dokapon Kingdom, like, if they just took the exact game and upped the players to like 6 or 8 and add online features and then just save as you go, it would be fantastic. But I think we should wrap up this episode, mostly because our last one was 66 minutes long, deliberately, because Order 66. Also, when we did our final ranking, to call back to episodes that you're probably watching in order, I acknowledge that we just straight up forgot to rate the Han Solo movie, and that's what it deserves. It deserves on our top 10 Star Wars movie list to not make the list. When your Star Wars movie is so forgettable that you didn't even remember to put it in your final tally?
Well, I feel like Han Solo is where they decided that they were going to nix the side stories because they realized that people just didn't care that much.
Or convert them to TV series.
I mean, that's true too.
All right.
Yeah, it's too bad we shouldn't talk about the TV series, like because the Mandalorian season 2, Secrets of Book of Boba Fett, and then the actual Mandalorian season 2. Pretty interesting.
So I do believe we can revisit Star Wars. We're allowed to do more than one episode on a thing. But
well, I mean, we probably will eventually. When Obi-Wan's done, but
for sure. Oh man, so I got paid to make a meme that just said, "Did you download your Adobe Wan Kenobi software?" But to wrap this week's episode up, I'm going to bring in our random question of the week. And remember to pop into our Twitch streams and spam us your random questions. Post them on my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram for your chance to win a free digital deluxe edition of the Waltz of Blades. And our random question coming in. This one's a pretty good one. I feel like you're going to give a solid answer, and we're going to end up at 66 minutes anyway. If you were offered the position of mayor of your city, would you take it? It's a good one, right?
Well, I mean, that's kind of like it's not a romanticized mayor like Oliver Queen in Star City. Like, you can't just go around being a vigilante and the mayor at the same time.
In Saskatoon, you can.
Well, yeah, I guess in Saskatoon. See, the real problem is that I'm not actually certain, like, what a mayor even, like, really does besides be the face of the city council.
So you're not going to take the position of mayor?
Well, I mean, it is a paid position.
And if it's not, you can embezzle Tallhack.
As far as I know, the only scandal I have is when I was telling you about how I was taking that girl to karaoke. But that's not really that much of a scandal.
It is when you phrase it like that at the end of an episode. If they haven't seen the previous one, it's perfect. But when I took that girl to karaoke, full stop. No, we're good. You don't get to explain that further. But you'd have to answer the question. Do you take the position of mayor of Saskatoon and or Moose Jaw if you're currently there?
No, I'm definitely in Saskatoon right now. Eventually, actually, in a couple weeks, I'm going to be in Calgary because they're opening a TJ's Pizza in Calgary.
Ooh, Calgary's actually fun. Wait. Oh, that doesn't quite work because, like, somewhere around December, I was planning to be in Calgary for a thing. That would have been hilarious. But
that would have been hilarious.
So, yeah.
But Mayor of Saskatoon, that seems like it's actually a pretty low stakes position, and it is paid. So yeah, I might be the Mayor of Saskatoon so that I could actually learn more about the inner workings of our political systems.
Very fair.
What about you? Would you ever want to be the mayor of Brampton?
No. My life is fantastic right now. Did I mention I got paid to run Jackbox games for eager students? If I was offered to be the dean of my college, 100%. Mayor of the student council, sure. But this academia life is delightful. I'm surrounded by humanities nerds who actually believe people should have rights. Like, everyone's warm and lovely. Be like, oh, I hear you're not feeling okay. Oh, it's okay. Oh, I'm so happy you brought through this list of mental health initiatives. I feel like being mayor of a GTA city, me trying to do good and being blocked by everything would just break me. Like, I would turn into Oliver Queen and just, now I have a list of the people I need to kill with a bow and arrow just so I can get the freaking bus fare down below $8.
Oh man!
No, disclaimer: I am not a bow murdering vigilante. Now, but if I were to be a vigilante, bow is a pretty cool weapon. All right, that should hold up.
Bow is a pretty cool weapon.
Actually, I feel like for me, a cane sword. Like I'd hold like needlessly elaborate. Like I would pull Mr. Sweet Tengu. If I'm the mayor of Brampton, I'm going full Sweet Tengu on this.
Just evil Bloodwing superpowers,
including the party under the Prime Minister building, which is also a bank holding all the city's money that I explode in a pillar of fire to reset the housing market. Yeah, no, I'm going full Swategu if that's happening. So to answer this question, if offered the position of the mayor of Brampton, I will become a supervillain as a result. There is zero middle ground.
Zero middle ground.
So I'm a
supervillain.
So it's like I would probably accept the position and then go evil. Alright, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your random question. Enjoy your beautiful Kindle version of The Waltz of Blades, which works on cell phones, computers, whatever. It just says Kindle. No one actually has to buy Jeff Bezos' Kindle to read things on Kindle. But thank you everybody for tuning in, and hopefully we'll get a Dokapon stream going soonish. And if we don't, pester us, pop in our streams. Oh, one last random thing. I had a question from one of our followers, which I'm going to ask to you here. If one of our followers wants to pop into our stream and just ask us how they should end their book, you would be super on board with that, right?
I mean, that would be interesting. Yeah, I would like to see that.
Because they're like, oh, I see you go live on Twitch, and I think I shouldn't bother you. I'm like, no, come bother us. We're playing Mecha Champions, and we're so unbelievably, ridiculously good at this game that we can definitely talk about your plot structure and your grammar concerns. Like, I don't even pause from shooting while I'm reading guest commentary. So if you want to come chat with us and suggest your random questions, pop right into our Tuesday Twitch streams and just come talk with us. We will happily discuss pretty much anything. If we're like, hey, what are your thoughts on Cambria as a font? Boom, Cambria episode. But thank you everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, and catch us on Tuesdays as we stream whatever random games. Maybe Dokapon Kingdom, maybe Mecha Champions. Dokapon Kingdom would be a good one though, because lots of time for dealing with the chat between turns.
True, and Mecha Champions is also a really good one because apparently, especially if Panda comes as a guest star, he can just win the match whilst we discuss things.
Well, I mean, it helps that I'm just a lowly bronze 1 rank.
Hey, you beat your own Battle Royale. You're officially better than Krillin. You're at Android 17 levels, okay? And no one can feel bad about being Android 17.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully you'll hear our beautiful voices in the future.
Wait, I got that so wrong. No. You're Goku, I'm Frieza. Okay, done. Bye.
Bye.